Hey, Senator Crusaders, welcome back to our special America's Spending Problem. I want to go to a former congressman. He represented Georgia from 95 to 2003, which the spending today even makes 2003 look like we weren't spending anything back then. He's now the president of Liberty Guard, and that is Congressman Bob Barr. Mr. Barr, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing good, although looking at the economic landscape out there, I have to say there are some, to put it mildly, very troubling signs.
I agree. I'm concerned, and I don't even know if enough people see it. I mean, you and I see it, and people in our world see it, but most people are so ignorant and naive about it all. I don't think they see it, and it's going to hit them like a pile of bricks. 2003, I mean, she's 18 years ago, right? Did you guys ever contemplate $3, $4, $5 trillion bills? Was that even in your ballpark?
No, it was not. And as you recall also, and some of your longer term viewers might recall, in the late 90s, with a Republican controlled Congress and a Democrat president, that is Bill Clinton, we actually did something that now is so far removed from the current situation, it seems like fantasy. We balanced the federal budget, and we did it by cutting spending, cutting bureaucracy, reducing taxes, reforming welfare. And unfortunately, within a very short period of time, after President Bush II came in, that all blew up. But no, we never, in those days, never contemplated or considered in our wildest dreams that we would see spending proposals in the multi-trillions of dollars. This is unheard of.
Tell me about the system and the incentives that are in the system and the lobbying that goes on in the system that makes a balanced budget or the idea of cutting spending such a fantasy and has put us on where we are today. What's that force here at work that makes this where we are?
On the one hand, it's sort of a natural consequence of having a representative government. You have representatives in the House and in the Senate, and the president representing his or her constituencies, and they represent the views and desires of the people that they represent. And in today's world, where government has become the default for everything that people either want to do or want to receive or to criticize, it is natural for people to turn to their representatives, to then turn to the levers of power in government in Washington to get things. So it's the natural result of our representative government. But what has happened in recent years is multinational corporations, major corporations in America, who always have had an easy time gaining access to leadership in the Congress, and doesn't matter whether it's Republican or Democrat, their power has increased dramatically, and the ease with which they can manipulate the tax system so that it favors them, and they can then get money from the government directly to implement social woke programs, has made the situation or raised it to an unheard of level. And, I was looking just yesterday, I think it was, at an article in the Wall Street Journal, and it compared spending in the United States with or without the $3.5 trillion spending bill to European countries. And the article was mildly critical of the United States and members of Congress who opposed the $3.5 trillion spending bill because, after all, the U.S. spends far less per capita on various social programs and individual income programs than other countries. This completely overlooks the fact that, unlike every one of these countries in Europe, whether we're talking about France, Germany, Italy, the UK, the United States is the only superpower. One of the reasons why it's the United States that leads the world and not France or the United Kingdom or Italy is because we have something called free enterprise here, and we have checks and balances that are supposed to limit government spending on individuals and individual businesses, leaving that responsibility to the businesses and the individuals. What this administration is doing would try and move us and would move us dramatically toward the European model and away from the model that has been a success for the United States for almost 2.5 centuries.
It's amazing that someone could look at those numbers you were talking about and come to the conclusion that we need to be more like these European countries when they're not leading the world economically and they're not innovating and have the biggest economy in the world. Clearly, we've been doing something right these last few hundred years. Why run away from that? But if you're on the left, you think capitalism is bad anyway. So what is Pelosi's role in all this? And you could speak specifically of her, but also just leadership. What is leadership's role in whipping up votes and telling people what to do and telling people to fall in line, or we're not going to support your campaign? How much of that goes on behind the scenes?
An awful lot of it. Back when I was in the House, for example, and those years included some of the years when Newt Gingrich was Speaker, we would have meetings in our caucus, in the Republican caucus. And if there was a major spending bill, for example, coming to the floor for a vote, we would have a meeting in our caucus. And Newt Gingrich and the other Republican leaders in the House would tell us, look, we want to pass this piece of legislation. We want to pass this spending bill. But if there is something in there, or if your constituents are opposed to a massive spending bills in those days were nothing compared to nowadays, then it was left specifically up or directed each member of our Republican caucus. We don't want you to vote for this. We don't want you to get crosswise with your constituents, their philosophical views or your views. That's changed dramatically now. And the message to particularly the Democrat caucus is vote for this, whether you like it or not. Vote for us regardless of whether or not it benefits the economy or not, because it is philosophically what we want to do. And the Democrat caucus, by and large, is allowing itself to be strong-armed by Pelosi, which is really the only thing she does well as Speaker. She comes from a very political family, and she is able to strong-arm votes. So in the House also, it's very difficult, given the rules of the House, to with limited debate, for example, and each bill having to have a rule before it comes to the floor for a vote, so you limit the parameters of it. It's more difficult than in the Senate to cobble something like this together, which is why Pelosi is having such a difficult time. And of course, because the numbers differentiating the majority from the minority are so small.
Yeah, let's keep it that way, especially in your state. Bob Barr, former congressman in Georgia. Mr. Barr, appreciate your time, sir.
Always a pleasure.